Welcome to FarmSource Seasonal Focus, created as a way to share knowledge and advice on the season ahead. We're vets, agronomists, vendor reps, our team of technical sales reps, and sustainable dairy advisors, but most importantly, fellow farmers, share their insights in an easily digestible way.
Welcome to the very first episode of FarmSource's Seasonal Focus. And in this season, we are going to be discussing facial eczema and how to take a proactive approach. Our first episode, it's fantastic to welcome Emma Cuttance, who's the head of research for VetEnt. Emma, for those who may not be familiar with your background, you certainly do know a thing or two about this topic.
A little bit, yes, yeah. I started off as a vet, in 2007, working with dairy farmers, and in 2008, a lot of them were hit with facial eczema, and as a clinic, we were saying, we've got to do this better, because we need to be able to help more to help farmers manage the disease. And then from there, I was just in the right place at the right time and ended up doing a master's thesis on management of facial eczema. And from there, we've probably now done about a decade of research on facial eczema, and a large portion of the research that is on that topic filters through our research division. So,
it is a funny name, facial eczema. It's not truly representative of what it is. A lot of misconceptions out there. Would you be able to sort of paint the picture of really what facial eczema is?
Sure. So first of all, it's not just a funny name, it's a ridiculous name because it's totally inaccurate to what the disease is about. So facial eczema is first and foremost a disease of the liver. And that's what we've got to remember. So when we think about facial eczema or when it's out on the media or anything like that, people are always talking about the skin signs, the peeling skin or the red udders or the irritable cowls. But that makes up such a small percentage of the disease. It is all about what is happening inside the cow. And only a very small number of cows actually get the clinical signs of the disease. However, if they have liver damage, they all get very affected in terms of milk production. So, in terms of the name, facial eczema, it's a common known name, but it's absolutely incorrect to what the disease is about.
Okay, so this is what is so frustrating for both researchers through to farmers dealing with this every day, because it's so hard to detect. How do you even begin to start to protect your herd?
Protect? Yeah. So the key is, well, there's a few steps, but the first is knowing what the risk is, right? And so we have a lot of farmers out there that just, so they give zinc to help protect against facial eczema, but they just give it at the same time every year, right? So you'll get farmers that be like, I've given it on the 2nd of January every day for my farming career. But the problem is that the spores or the risk of where this toxin is coming from, they might have increased already in December. Or alternatively, spores might not increase until later in the year, but we're already giving zinc when we don't need to. So managing it with zinc, but doing it when you know what risk you have before you even start is the key. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is if you are giving things like zinc or fungicide or whatever you're giving, we've got to check that it's working. Right? So a lot of people are giving zinc to their cattle and they're following bag recommendations, undoubtedly, but nobody's checking to see if it's working. And I can assure you that 60% of the country that provide zinc to their cattle are not getting enough zinc into their cattle to protect against facial eczema. And we need to do that at the moment through blood work.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. How do you know it's working?
Well, first of all is in the blood, you can see what the concentration of zinc is for most zinc products, not all, for most. And that gives you an indication of if you are getting enough zinc into the cow to counteract the toxin. Because what zinc does is it binds to the sporidesmin toxin, which makes it not so reactive, which is causing the damage, right? So I'm not quite sure how detailed to get, right? But we have a toxin. It's a very unstable toxin. It gets into the rumen of the cow and it's flicking from form to form, right, back and forth. And when it does that, it fires off these sort of supercharged oxygen molecules, right? They're called free radicals. We hear about that all the time, right? Because if you eat dark chocolate, it's supposed to absorb free radicals.
And if you have oil of oolay,
totes,
gets the free radicals and the wrinkles away.
Absolutely. Now, these things, they sound wishy-washy, but they're real. And this is what gets produced with an unstable molecule that's flicking from form to form. So the zinc comes in and it binds to the molecule and it stabilizes it. So it stops flicking from form to form. We stop getting these oxygen radicals, free radicals flying off, and therefore we don't get the damage. But you have to have enough zinc. And just giving some zinc in a trough or however they're going to give it, if you don't get the concentration high enough, you will not stop that that molecule flicking from form to form, and therefore you will not protect your cows.
In the next episode, we will be going over applications of zinc, but from your particular perspective, Emma, why is things like fertiliser through water not as powerful and maintaining a zinc level throughout the year, but also boosting at those key times as well?
Okay, so, something like water, we're picking on water, but, it's a very, very common method for farmers to use. And for good reason, because it's really easy to apply to a whole bunch of cattle. And for the basic, I think, application of minerals, it's probably fine you can handle a bit of variability. They don't necessarily need as much. But when we're giving zinc, we need to give 25 times the dose of normal zinc to be able to get it into them, to be able, with enough to be able to counteract the toxin. And that is really difficult to achieve with certain methods. And water is one of those methods because there are so many places it could break down, right? So you've got the variability in how cows drink, how they produce, their size, their hierarchy. You've got those old batty ones that are pushing away the nice young ones, right? You've got water leaks. You've got evaporation. All of these things contribute to why it's very hard to get enough into them. You go into something like feed. Jeepers, I could spend, forever talking about this, and I'll try my hardest not to. But you get into feed, you've now got the variability in what cows eat, because you got those big hungry ones that eat it all, and then the little ones that don't get it, or fussy cows. Or you've got in feed pads variation from the beginning, middle to the end of the feed pad, from the top, the middle to the bottom. There's so much variability. And will there be
chemical reactions and things going on with zinc? Effectiveness changes within feed too, based on.
I'm not quite sure about. I'm not quite sure about that. Not quite sure about that. But it's more the distribution of zinc throughout the feed, and you by all means you get feed that it's incorporated into a pellet. That's quite consistent. In shed, you get a small amount into each cow. When you start dealing with big amounts of maize or things in a feed pad, you've got a lot of variability in what they're eating. So there are methods. They work in some cases, they don't work in other cases. But the key is saying, if you're giving these methods, no matter what it is, from drenching through to water, we've got to check that it's working, because in so many cases it is not.
And that's through a blood test
at
random through herds. Let's talk about the age of the cattle, and in particular around calving time. At what age should you be starting to address this with young animals?
Oh, you mean like from if the calves? Really? Yeah, so anything that eats grass is susceptible to getting facial eczema. So as soon as we get into the risk periods for facial eczema, which you will pick up from testing the spores on the farm or out at grazing, you need to be looking at treating them for preventing against facial eczema. So in calves, most people use a form of slow-release zinc, a capsule, or some people drench if they can, but straight away, as soon as they're on pasture, you've got to be thinking about the risk of facial eczema.
What about in-calf cows and their susceptibility?
Exactly the same.
Are they more highly susceptible?
So only during the risk period. So like when they've immediately calved in June or July, it's not really a high risk period for the fungus. But then of course they move on into December, January and onwards, and off we go again. So everything is susceptible that is a ruminant.
Yeah. Now we're going to be joined with Emma in episode 3 of the Facial Eczema, a Proactive Approach season. Thank you so much, Emma. Look forward to getting into some more detail. But in the next episode, we're going to be joined by Nick, who is a technical sales rep for FarmSource, around the various different applications for zinc.
Thanks for watching Farm Source Seasonal Focus. If you want to know more about the content featured in this episode, contact your local technical sales rep or talk to our store staff.